Noor was a broke weakling who was rejected from every training program because of his pathetic skills. However, everything changes when he trains his only skill for 14 years, making him an overpowered swordsman who cracks his enemies by day and baddies by night. It all starts on the day when Noor tells his sickly mother he's going to fetch some herbs for her. But before he leaves, she apologizes for making his childhood hard and tells him to live his life to the fullest, no matter what. That night, when Noor returns, he finds his mother long dead, leaving him completely alone in the world. However, Noor refuses to let his grief break him down and begins tending to his farm. And one day, while cleaning, he discovers his late father's book of adventures. Noor is left so fascinated by it that he remembers his mom telling him to live his life, so he makes up his mind to become an adventurer. The next day, Noor pays respect to his parents' grave and arrives at the local guild for the registration process. However, the guild master tells Noor to go home, because fun-sized boys like him get the Justin Bieber special from diddlers. Even then, Noor refuses to back down, and narrates his orphan lore, until the guild master decides to help him out, believing he could be the next Naruto Uzumaki. Once the guild master tells Noor to acquire a skill first, he immediately enrolls in the city's swordsmanship academy. But after months of training, the sword master tells Noor that he sucks more than Mia Khalifa, and the only thing he's good at is parrying. Despite this, Noor refuses to give up and spends the next few months trying his luck at the warrior, hunter, thief, mage, and healer academies. However, they all tell Noor the same thing, that he's a talentless bum like Aniander Watchers. Left with no choice, Noor returns home, but refuses to give up on his dream, and trains hard every day to perfect the only skill he has learned, which is parrying. 14 years later, Noor can now parry 1,000 swords, but other than that, he's still a hopeless loser. Despite knowing that, he returns to the guild, hoping this time would be different. But when the receptionist sees his crappy resume, she tells Noor the only adventure he'll be doing in this life is cleaning the public toilets. Just then, the guild master walks in and recognizes Noor as the useless orphan from years ago. Over drinks, the guild master learns that Noor spent all these years training, so he takes pity on Noor and appoints him as a F-ranked adventurer. However, the old man warns Noor that he's only allowed to take on small jobs that are done by illegal immigrants. Noor excitedly thanks the guild master and immediately devotes himself to helping those in need. One day, while Noor is helping at a construction site, he hears a girl screaming for help and becomes worried. He follows the sound and arrives at the dungeon where he sees a girl imprisoned by a bloodthirsty minotaur, while her knights are desperately trying to save her. Yet, in the matter of seconds, the minotaur tears the knights apart, leaving chunks of their flesh spread across the ground. As Noor stands there, traumatized by what he just witnessed, he watches the monster heading towards the scared, helpless girl. Recalling that he wanted to become an adventurer to Aura Farm in front of hot gals, Noor throws a pebble at the monster to divert his attention towards him. The minotaur charges at Noor with his horns pointing towards his chest, but Noor unexpectedly parries the monster, sending him flying into a wall. The relentless monster gets back up, swinging his axe at Noor, who parries his every attack. Just when Noor has the upper hand, a magic ring catches the Minotaur's eye, making him leap towards the girl. Transforming into Minato Uzumaki, Noor reaches the girl in time to shield her from the bloodthirsty monster. While facing the Minotaur, Noor loses his sword, but even he refuses to give up and puts all his strength into his parry skill, sending the monster's axe flying back into his own neck. As the Minotaur drops dead, the girl thanks Noor and asks for his name, but he tells her that he's nobody important and leaves her cookie dripping.
Yeah, boy.
What the idiot doesn't know is that the girl he just rescued is Princess Lin of the Clay's Empire. Lin offers a quick prayer for the fallen soldiers when her guardian knight, Ines, shows up, apologizing for not being there for her. However, Lin assures her that she's fine before another commander, Draken, tells Lin they should head back to the palace. The next day, Lin's brother, Prince Rain, asks Draken if they're sure Lin was attacked by a minotaur, since it's uncommon for a monster like that to be on the surface. All of this points to only one thing, that someone called the Minotaur to attack Lin. Draken confirms this, informing Rain they found a magic ring on the Minotaur's corpse, which was examined by the royal wizard who told them the ring was made in the magic empire of Deridas. When Rain hears this, he concludes their enemy kingdom knowingly left the ring behind because they wanted to provoke a war with the Clay Empire so they could seize control of the Dungeon of the Lost. Following this, Rain inquires about the person who saved the princess, and Draken informs him that the mysterious hero disappeared from their eyes as money disappears from my bank account. Meanwhile, Noor arrives at the guild, and after seeing him, the master tells Noor everyone was worried about him, since a demon appeared near the construction site. After informing the old man he went home because he was being followed, Noor further asks about the demon. So the old fart reveals that it was an A-ranked monster that not even the strongest adventurers can defeat easily. Upon hearing this, Noor believes that what he encountered was just an ordinary cow on weed, while the A-ranking monster must have been defeated by a legendary man. The guild master then gives Noor his payment and tells him he should find a decent job. Just then, Princess Lin walks in, shocking the guild master, while Noor casually asks the girl why she's here. Lin replies that she used magic to find him, and Noor thinks he must have rizzed the shoddy. But before he can holler at her, the guild master pulls him aside, asking if he did something wrong. Noor assures the old man that he didn't do anything sussy, while Lin creates a concealment bubble for them to talk in peace. Once they arrive at a discreet location, Lin thanks Noor for risking his life, revealing that by saving her, he has saved the empire. While Noor is wondering whether Lin has a god complex, she tells him that her father wants to reward him. However, Noor tells Lin that he doesn't need anything, which leaves her so flabbergasted that she starts listing down all the riches she can give him.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Noor turns her down again, and this time, Lin feels offended and starts tearing up, prompting Noor to state that he'll meet her master, but that will be all. Lin gladly agrees and leads Noor to her estate, which leaves his mouth hanging since he has never seen such a lavish place in his life. Once they are inside, Lin introduces herself, and in return Noor does the same. As they walk further inside, Noor thinks that Lin is one of those rich brats who probably has a trust fund. Just then, Lin walks up to Ines and excitedly introduces Noor as the guy who saved her. When she asks about her father, Ines informs her that he's currently in a meeting with Rain. Noor, on the other hand, stares at Ines's armor and wonders how she pees in that thing. When he notices her glaring at him, he realizes that she's wary of him. Moments later, they arrive inside, where Noor is greeted by another cartoon named Gilbert and his spear. Seeing this, Ines tells Gilbert to stop being rude to Lin's guest, making him realize that Noor is the guy everyone has been searching for. After intimidating Noor with his eyes, Gilbert mockingly tells him that he looks like a peasant. While Noor remains nonchalant to Gilbert's insults, Ines quietly tells the clown that he should come with them for maximum protection. Meanwhile, Rain tells his father, King Clays, that Emperor Darius must have orchestrated the attack on Lin, because they refused to give him access to the Dungeon of Lost and its secrets. Hearing this, Clays realizes that it's time to take matters into his hands. Just then, Lin enters, and seeing her cloak, Rain scolds her for going outside. Assuring her brother that she was safe, Lin tells them who Noor is, while the idiot thinks that everyone in Lin's family is super flashy. As Clays comes down from his throne to thank him, Noor casually tells him that he doesn't have the proper etiquette to communicate with aristocrats, still completely unaware that he's talking to the king himself. Laughing at his simplicity, Clays assures Noor that he prefers his casual tone over fake politeness, and on that note, he asks Noor what he wants as his reward. When Noor tells Clays that he does not need money or land, Clay insists that he take something from the treasures that were unearthed from the dungeon. At this, Rain tells his father that he is being overly generous, but what shocks him is when Noor turns Clay's offer again, stating that he's not into flashy thank yous. Even then, Clays refuses to let Noor leave empty-handed, so he grabs the sword sitting behind his throne and hands it to Noor, shocking everyone. As Noor holds the sword, he realizes that it's unusually heavy, which makes him realize that it must be super expensive. However, Clays tells him that he picked it up on a journey, insisting that he give the old sword a swing. Noor agrees and uses physical enhancement on his arm before swinging the sword, causing all the windows to shake from the impact. While everyone is speechless, King Clays realizes that he made the right call, so he tells Noor that he wants him to teach his daughter some self-defense. However, since Noor has seen Lin using advanced magic, he thinks he's beneath her, so he tells Clays that Lin is more than capable of fending for herself. This makes the old king laugh, while Ines gives Noor a bombastic side-eye.
Criminal offensive side-eye.
Following this, Noor heads out, thinking that he would use the sword as a shovel, when Ines stops him, saying that she wants to talk. Moments later, she kneels down in apology for being rude to him, but Noor assures her that he didn't mind her bad manners. She then tells Noor that because he saved Lin's life, she is indebted to him, so if he ever needs help, he should come to her. Noor agrees, which prompts Ines to ask for his name, but the minute he tells her, she gets silent and walks away. Just then, Gilbert arrives and challenges Noor to a duel, making him realize he is the main lead of Spider-Man, Can't Go Home. As they arrive in the training room, Gilbert states that he wants to have a mock battle with him. Noor thinks it's a wonderful opportunity to learn something from someone stronger than him, but in reality, Gilbert wants to prove that he is better than Noor. After the weapon selection, Noor overhears the knights whispering that he's cooked since Gilbert is a beast, but this only excites Noor further. However, when Gilbert swings his spear at him, Noor easily evades all his attacks and wonders if Gilbert is purposely being lenient with him. So he tells Gilbert that he doesn't need to hold back, which shocks him slightly, but he agrees to go all out. Even then, Noor parries every attack directed towards him, until Gilbert is left exhausted. However, the oblivious fool thinks that Gilbert is stopping for him, so he tells him they can duel for another 2 hours. Not wanting to be humiliated, the Spear Master suddenly attacks Noor with a special spell called Dragon Rave, but when the dust settles, everyone in the room is shocked to see Noor unharmed. However, for Noor, that was a close call, so he tells Gilbert that he accepts defeat and leaves him speechless. On his way home, Noor thinks to himself that Gilbert is inhumanely strong. While in the training room, Gilbert sulks in the corner as he overhears everyone talking about how it's rare for someone to defeat a talented prodigy like Gilbert. This makes him recall the moment he picked up a spear and knew he was destined to master it. As time went on, Gilbert had defeated the strongest knight in the royal capital, which left him deeply unsatisfied because he was constantly looking for someone stronger than him. Then one day, Gilbert's master told him to join the royal troops, where he might be able to find worthy opponents. Unfortunately, no human or monster stood a chance against Gilbert, which made him extremely frustrated. One day, while he was sulking, Master Sig told him that he looked way too unhappy for someone who was crowned the title of Spear Sovereign. Gilbert then revealed that his motive to join the royal troops was to find worthy opponents, but he was starting to realize that he would die of boredom before getting the chance to face someone strong. When he told Sig there should be more men like him, Sig replied that he knows he will be bested one day, but Gilbert thought that the old man was just being humble. That was until he met Noor, a guy with no magical talent who easily evaded all his attacks. What surprised him the most was when Noor parried his Dragon Rave, which is nearly impossible for a human to dodge. He then wondered if Noor told him he lost because he didn't want him getting mocked by the other knights. While Gilbert is thinking that things are finally going to get fun, Noor thinks he is still a weakling and was nearly slimed by Gilbert. The next day, Noor starts using his sword as a shovel to dig out the mud, and is amazed by how fast he can get his job done. After completing his work, Noor relaxes in a forest, when, like every Gen Z, he thinks about what he would do if there were no more jobs for him in the city. As an F-ranked adventurer, he can't step outside for missions. As a result, Noor makes up a list of all the possible tasks he can do using his sword. A few minutes later, Lin shows up, telling Noor that she used magic to find him again, causing him to ask if she needs him for something. Lin excitedly tells Noor that he wants to become his page, but since Noor is an illiterate, uneducated moron, he tells Noor that he doesn't know what that is. So she informs him that a page is like a personal assistant, and after hearing this, Noor immediately tells Lin he has no use for her. Undeterred by his rejection, Lin starts showing off all her abilities one by one, before telling Noor that she graduated with top scores from all the magic academies in the city. That's when Noor realizes that Lin thinks of him as Madara Uchiha, so he shows Lin how pathetic he is by creating a small flame of fire, leaving her shocked. On her way back home, Lin thinks about how every training master used to tell them about a talentless boy, but everyone dismissed it as a myth, since nobody could fathom that someone was that useless. Up until recently, Lin was the same, but then she met the boy from the story, and realized everyone was crapping her. Turns out, the reason why Lin was so shocked after seeing Noor's tiny flame was that years ago, the realm's strongest wizard, Oaken, showed her his version of Tiny Flame, telling her that it was extremely hard to make the flame bigger and round. She then activates her Tiny Flame and thinks about how much smaller it is compared to Noor's. This leads Lin to believe that Noor must be extremely talented in other areas, which must be why he never boasts about his abilities, because everyone knows talk is cheap. Lin also knows that eventually she will be the ruler of the kingdom, and to protect everyone, she must train her body and mind like Noor. A few hours later, Lin approaches Noor again, telling him that until he accepts her as his page, she will follow him around like a dog. As Noor hears Lin calling him sensei, he wonders if Shadi has snorted some meth straight from Walter White's lab, not knowing that Lin is doing all this so she can become a stronger monarch. Meanwhile, in his office, Rain wonders why his father gave the legendary black sword to a dusty, crusty man with unknown lineage. Years ago, Clays was an adventurer, and with the help of his party, known as the Sovereign Six, he conquered the deepest corner of the Dungeon of the Lost. The journey was extremely dangerous, and the reward they got for it was a prime dungeon relic, a black sword made of unknown material which was stronger than mithril. No matter what anyone did, the sword remained unbreakable, making it more worthy than any treasure. However, in the end, Rain convinces himself that his father must be relying on Noor, for the storm headed towards their kingdom. Speaking of which, Noor is in the marketplace, stuck with Lin, so he tells her that girls her age should be watching Winx Club at home. However, Lin counters that she is a full-fledged adventurer, which makes Noor sigh. He then tells her that he is going to the guild, and Lin immediately chimes in that she is going with him. By now, Noor knows that there's no talking sense into Lin, so he remains quiet while she eagerly tells him how she's going to be a better student than Jessica was to Mr. Wilson. When the guild master sees Noor together with the princess, he asks him if he did something, while Lin tells the old fart to treat her like an ordinary adventurer. The old guild master apologizes to Noor, stating that it's not his business to interfere, even though Noor was hoping the guild master would tell Lin that she can't hang out with big buff boys. Accepting his fate, Noor then asks the guild master to give him a two-man job, and he reveals that since Lin is a B-rank adventurer, they can take up a goblin hunting mission on the outsiders of the city. Naturally, Noor is psyched to hear this, because adventurers all over the world use goblins to measure their strength. Seeing this, the guild master tells Noor that he is only being allowed to go outside because Lin is with him. Noor suddenly realizes that he is using Lin's rank to get this job, and while he's having a moral dilemma, Lin asks him what's the matter. So he tells her that it feels like he is using her rank to get a better job, but Lin assures him that she doesn't mind. Now relieved, Noor heads out to start his new job, when the guild master yells at the idiot that he hasn't told him where he'll be going. The old man then informs Noor that he'll be going into the forest of the monsters, and he must bring back the goblin's ear if he wants to be paid for the job. Thanking the master, Noor and Lin soon arrive at the forest, where he asks Lin to give him basic information on the goblins. So she tells him that while goblins usually hunt smaller animals, they have recently started attacking humans for sustenance. So if they were to leave the goblins alive, they would have a food shortage. However, if goblins are hunted to extinction, then it could be bad for the environment, since they eat a lot of invasive species. Hearing this, Noor realizes that not only is Lin exceptionally talented in magic, but she also has a lot of knowledge, which leads him to think there is nothing he can teach her. An hour later, when they are still unable to find a goblin, Lin tells Noor that rumors about goblins being excessively hunted must be true. Right then, Lin senses a goblin's presence, but when she leads Noor to the area, they find it completely empty, which leaves them confused until Noor points at a half-eaten goblin corpse. Just then, Lin warns him to be careful, as a giant goblin appears before them, leaving them both horrified. While Lin knows there is something clearly wrong with the goblin, Noor doesn't know this, and thinks that all newbie adventurers have to face such monsters. However, when he looks over, he finds Lin trembling, which confuses Noor at first, but then he thinks that Lin must be dreaming about getting backshots from the goblin with 10 pecs. Meanwhile, Lin is wondering how a goblin emperor got here, since they were created by dark sorcerers for evil reasons. But what's worse is that they are facing a one-of-a-kind goblin emperor that consumes his own kind to grow strong. Just then, Lin hears Noor assuring her they can take down the goblin hunk, and she can keep his green eggplant for some fun time. This leads Noor to think that he was so excited for this job because he knew about the goblin emperor and was looking forward to fighting him. Now feeling excited, Lin agrees to assist Noor, who then tries to tackle the monster by using his parry skill. Meanwhile, Lin struggles to land a direct hit on the goblin, causing her to become frustrated. The monster continues to wreak havoc upon them until Lin spots the mana stone on his forehead and tells Noor they'll only win if he lands a strike on the red stone. After thinking for a while, Noor tells Lin to use wind magic against his back, which shocks her because that sort of magic can easily blow up castle walls. However, Noor assures Lin that he can take it, knowing that this is their only chance against the goblin Chad. As Lin activates the spell, Noor finds his entire body under excruciating pressure, so he uses physical enhancement and healing magic to bear the pain until he can successfully strike the mana stone. Upon seeing the goblin emperor go crazy, Noor requests Lin to finish the job so the poor fellow doesn't suffer. Lin agrees and treats the goblin like how gentlemen from the 50s treated women. As Noor watches the goblin burn, he can't help but feel sorry for him, so he decides to stay away from goblin hunting for a while. Several hours later, the mana stone is shown to Rain, who immediately realizes that the goblin emperor was once again sent by the enemy kingdom to cause havoc. The secret squad further informs Rain that the monster was hiding under a magical veil, which makes him wonder how he was able to stay hidden from the surveillance squad. The cloaked men, in response, tell Rain that since no reports were made in the area, they couldn't tell what was going on. He then hands Rain a report of all the questionable events that took place in the last 3 months. Meanwhile, the guild master is shocked to hear that the weak idiot from years ago hunted down a goblin. Noor humbly tells the man that it was only possible because he received help from Lin. Despite Lin's denial, the guild master believes that Noor must have let Lin do all the fighting like a typical coward. He then asks for the goblin's ear, only for Lin and Noor to realize they forgot to bring the only evidence that would help them get paid. A few hours later, Rain goes through the report and learns the civilians are being haunted by mysterious things. Some are hearing voices that stop them from sleeping at night, while some have complained about their livestock disappearing without a trace. After reading the report, Rain feels dreadful that the enemy has deeply infiltrated their country, so he asks the Ambu Black Ops to create a separate group to look for suspicious activity and orders them to summon the Sovereign Six. Once they leave to follow his orders, Rain shakes with anger, as he wonders why the Magic Empire is so desperate to have their dungeon's resources that they are willing to harm innocent civilians. Meanwhile, the kind Guildmaster hands Noor some coins, stating that he is making an exception this time, since it's his very first hunt, and thanks to that, Noor and Lin can have a crappy meal. After the food, Noor wonders when Lin will go home, because surely her parents must miss her, and just then, Lin tells Noor she'll come tomorrow to assist him again. Before he can say anything, Rain walks up to them and asks Noor if he can head to a city in the mountain district with Lin tomorrow morning. As Noor and Lin look at him with confusion, Rain apologizes, explaining that he can't give them any details yet, which gives Noor a vague idea that whatever it is, it's extremely serious. So he agrees, and tells Rain he'll start packing for the journey, causing the prince to say that all expenses are paid by him. The next morning, Noor is in the carriage, which is heading towards the mountain district, and on the way, he excitedly pokes his head out because it's his first time experiencing such luxury. He then thinks to himself that if he continues hanging out with Lin, then maybe one day, he'll be able to travel out of the country. That's when Noor notices Lin looking oddly sad, so he asks her to enjoy the scenery, but she replies by apologizing for making him come on such a tedious journey. However, Noor tells Lin to cheer up, because he's pretty happy about going on an all-expense-paid trip. Earlier that day, Rain explained to them they were actually going to the holy theocracy of Mithra. While he looked tense and hoped they wouldn't encounter any anomalies along the way, Noor was just happy about getting paid to take a vacation. Presently, Ines assures Lin not to worry, because she will keep her safe no matter what. As it turns out, Ines received a secret order from the prince, who told her to keep Lin safe in another country, because he believes the Empire of Deridas is trying to destroy the royal capital. At first, Ines insisted that she stay back to help him, but Rain insisted that it's important she keeps the future monarch safe from falling into the enemy's hands. In the present, Ines apologizes to Noor for making him come along with them, but he becomes frustrated and wonders why everyone is making a big deal out of a free vacation. Instead of telling him the truth, Ines informs Noor that if they run into any trouble, she will protect him using a shield. When Noor counters that he can't see her shield, Ines activates her divine shield. Noticing how surprised Noor is, Ines reveals that no weapon or magic can get past her shield for the most part. As Noor examines the shield closely, he thinks to himself how both Ines and Gilbert are exceptionally strong, while he's a nobody peasant who only has a stupid parry skill. Ines, on the other hand, thinks about the day her power accidentally injured her friend from the orphanage where she grew up. Thankfully, a healer named Sign healed her in time, while Oaken the Wizard told everyone that Ines possessed a power that could either shield others or destroy countries. Upon hearing this, one of the members of the Sovereign Shield, Dandalg, started training Ines so she could control her powers better. Eventually, they became so close that Ines started considering Dandalg as her father. Then, one day, during their training, Ines heard Dandalg say that he wished Noor was here, and that's why, when Noor first introduced himself, she became speechless, because he was the same guy who was adored by her adoptive father. This made Ines extremely jealous of Noor, and even now, she feels upset whenever she sees Noor. However, once they resume their journey, Ines tries her best to forget about her bitter feelings towards Noor. Then, all of a sudden, Noor notices something amiss, so Lin stops the carriage to take a closer look. She then casts a revealing spell that suddenly destroys the barrier hiding a powerful black dragon. Meanwhile, in the capital, a soldier rushes to inform Clays that several monsters have been sighted, so Rain orders him to evacuate all the civilians. Outside, the Sovereign Six try their best to subjugate the monsters, while Clays becomes frustrated, knowing that Deridas was serious about his threat of destroying their kingdom. Even in this critical time, Rain feels relieved that Lin is safe and sound. Meanwhile, in the marsh, an ugly boy named Rollo had been traveling alongside the Black Dragon. As he prepares himself to destroy everyone, the barrier gets destroyed, which shocks him so badly that he loses control of the dragon. However, before Rollo is slain by his own dragon, Noor rushes to protect him, despite Ines telling him to stop. As Noor shields the boy from the dragon's attack, Ines reveals the boy is actually a demon, which shocks Lin. She recalls that Rain had once told her the demon folk controlled powerful monsters, and they nearly wiped out the theocracy of Mithra. As a result, humans hunted them until they were pushed to extinction. However, Rain believed that some of the demon folk were still alive. After seeing Rollo, Lin realizes that he was taking the dragon to destroy the capital. Just then, the monster spits out a black substance on Noor, which leaves him deeply wounded. Seeing this, Lin tries to help Noor, but Ines blocks her path, stating that she can't risk her life since she is the future of Clay's kingdom. As the dragon fires another attack, covering the whole field in black mist, Ines apologizes to Noor, thinking he's dead, but when her vision clears up, she's amazed to see Noor still fighting the dragon. At that moment, Ines realizes why Dandal respected Noor so much. Meanwhile, Noor collapses on the ground, unable to endure the pain any longer. Years ago, Rollo and other demons his age were living in a prison, surviving on stale bread. All of this was because they had the power to control monsters, and humans thought they were a threat to their world. Then one day, he stared at the guard for too long and got beaten to a pulp for it, as the guard told Rollo that he hated his ugly eyes. When Rollo heard that, he asked why he hated him and his friends so much, but that only earned him a few extra kicks. Eventually, he got used to the hatred and was often kept in a public cage, so humans could take their frustration out on his feeble body. Due to his powers, Rollo could read their minds, and when they found out about this, they became more violent towards him. Despite all that, Rollo never thought of retaliating, because after enduring so much violence, he never wanted to see another person hurt. However, all that changed when the same guard told Rollo that if he controlled and took the monsters to Clay's kingdom, then he would be given proper treatment. But if he refused or failed the mission, then his life would be full of pain. Since the guard was wearing a stone that prevented mind reading, Rollo had no choice but to agree. However, on the way to the Clay's kingdom, the seal broke, which caused the monster to attack him. As Rollo welcomed death, he wished that in the next life, he would be useful to humans, so they'd let him eat good food. Yet in his final moment, a man came to rescue him, and as Rollo watched him fight, he wondered why he was protecting him. When the dragon spat poison at him, the man used his healing abilities to keep him safe until he fell down from all the toxins. In the present, Noor recalls that when he was working on his parents' farm, he accidentally consumed a poisonous plant that made him gravely ill. However, he used low heal to keep himself alive, and when he was finally better, he continued with his daily life. One day, Noor was gathering herbs when he got bitten by a venomous snake, but after the initial pain, Noor realized that he was completely okay. He celebrated this by eating the same venomous snake that had bitten him. After that, Noor unlocked his inner Bear Grylls and started consuming poisonous things to test out his endurance. Eventually, he developed a taste for them and would purposely snack on them, at the cost of losing a few liters of blood. That's why, even after getting struck by the dragon's poisonous spit, Noor was completely fine. After a few minutes, Noor jumped back on his feet to fight the dragon so he could eventually eat it. After making sure Rollo is okay, Noor prepares himself for the dragon's final attack, while Ines and Lin watch him with awe. Just when the dragon is about to launch a large poison bomb, Noor jams his sword against the monster's mouth, causing it to explode from within. While the monster slowly melts away, Noor goes to check up on Rollo, but he nervously tells Noor that he was taking the dragon to the capital city. The idiot thinks the dragon must have been for eating, and that's why Rollo was secretly bringing the monster to the city, as he probably didn't want anyone harming his livestock. While Noor is thinking about how Rollo must have raised the dragon with a lot of hard work, he apologizes, promising to pay him back for his loss. Rollo doesn't know what to say, so he tells Noor it's okay, who then asks him how he was able to bring the monster so far. Rollo fearfully reveals that he can control monsters and expects a beating from Noor, but when he tells Rollo that it's an extraordinary skill, he becomes confused at his response. So he clarifies to Noor that he's a demon folk, and because of that, he can control monsters. Noor, being a simpleton, thinks demon folk is some kind of tribe that can naturally tame monsters. So he tells Rollo that if he had his gift, he would use the monsters to do menial jobs for him, and at night, he would use them as guards. Hearing this, Rollo tells Noor that he is despised by a lot of people for having this ability, which surprises Noor, and he tells Rollo that he shouldn't care about what others say, since his skill is incredibly useful. When Rollo hears this, he becomes overwhelmed with emotions, as he had never thought someone like him could be useful. Meanwhile, Noor wonders why Rollo has so little self-worth when he's naturally gifted, unlike him, who is completely useless. As Noor consoles Rollo, Lin and Ines arrive to ask him if he's okay, but when Lin sees he's completely fine, she is left shocked. She then recalls that one of the Sovereign Six, Sign, told her that if a person trains his body and mind like a saint, then he'd be able to heal any wound. However, it took Sign years and years of practice to master that technique, while Noor has achieved that at such a delicious age. Just then, Noor asks Lin to heal Rollo, and while he tells everyone that he's okay, Lin and Ines look at him with contempt. The princess then asks Rollo if he's a demon folk, and before he can confirm, Noor tells Lin that she sure knows her stuff. This gives Lin the impression that Noor already knows about the demon folk, so she asks him what he intends to do with Rollo. When he casually says he wants to take Rollo with them, Ines and Lin immediately refuse, stating that it's dangerous to bring him. While Lin is thinking about how most countries recommend murdering a demon folk on sight, Ines asks Rollo who ordered him to bring the monster. Rollo nervously tells her that he doesn't know, and seeing his demeanor and frail body, Ines instantly realizes that Rollo was kept as a slave. While the Clay's kingdom is completely against slavery, other countries are notorious for using powerful slaves for their advantage, and Rollo is no different. Ines then asks Rollo if he knows his way home, so he tells her that he was mostly kept blindfolded, so he doesn't know which country he came from. Hearing this, Lin suddenly feels bad for judging Rollo, as she remembers her father always told her to never trust rumors. Feeling guilty, Lin tells Ines that she wants to take Rollo with them, but the knight reminds her that demon folk are not allowed in the theocracy of Mithra, so if they took Rollo with them, they'd be considered enemies. While they are wondering what to do next, a blindfolded mercenary named Zadu shows up. Assessing Rollo, Zadu tells him that he messed up the delivery, to which Noor asks him if he is the one who sent Rollo. After revealing that he is just a helping hand, Zadu asks Noor if he is the one who slayed the dragon. Noor immediately takes responsibility, but when he apologizes to Zadu, he tells Noor that he is only concerned with Rollo, and that's why he's here to take him back. For a brief second, Noor thinks Rollo is about to go back to his loving home, until Zadu suddenly attacks the poor boy. Noor instantly parries his attack, asking Zadu what the meaning of his attack is. Zadu then tells Noor that he's here to delete Rollo so he can take his corpse back to his client, which leaves Noor shocked. Zadu strikes again, but Noor, once again, shields Rollo with his sword. In the meantime, Lin tries to make sense of what's going on, since the two men are fighting so fast that her eyes can barely track their movements. Just then, Ines tells Lin to stand behind her as she creates a divine shield around them. Meanwhile, Zadu finally realizes that he can't complete his mission with Noor in his way, so he announces that he's going to yeet him too. With that, Zadu launches a series of attacks on Noor, making him realize that his new opponent is stronger than the Minotaur. While Noor tries to figure out a way to defend himself and keep Rollo safe, Ines tells Lin they are up against Deadman Zadu, a former S-ranked adventurer. A few years ago, Ines had found a book on multiple unresolved cases where all the victims had died without fail. When she brought this up to the Sovereign Six, they told her it was Zadu's doing, an S-tier adventurer who was constantly targeted by other S-rankers. When Gilbert heard this, he decided to go after this Zadu guy, but everyone at the table told Gilbert that Zadu would swipe his head like a credit card. The Sovereign Six then revealed that Zadu is so strong, they don't want anyone going after him, because they'll just be coming back in a body bag. However, this only made Gilbert and Ines more interested, so Oaken revealed that as a wee lad, Zadu had mastered the ancient art of dwarven alchemy and went on to become the youngest dragon slayer in the history of the world. Eventually, Zadu became the most feared adventurer of all time because he would do anything for a fat bag of coins. For that reason, a lot of people wanted Zadu to be labeled as a criminal, but since he had made several contributions, the guild refused to take away his license. The most horrible thing Zadu ever did was wiping out a whole country, along with the royal family, and because of that, a large bounty was placed on his head. But whoever went after him always came back dead. As a result, the guild had to declare that Zadu was dead to stop people from going after him. Presently, Zadu tells Noor that he broke his entire collection of swords. Noor apologizes and asks Zadu if he wants to be reimbursed, but in response, Zadu tells him that he is a total weirdo who has an even weirder sword. Following this, Zadu throws his last remaining sword in the air, which turns into multiple small swords, all aimed at Noor and Rollo. He then tells Noor that he can destroy as many of his swords as he wants to, because he'll just keep making new ones. When Ines watches Noor parrying the attacks while keeping Rollo safe with his body, she realizes that he won't be able to hold out forever. Even though she wants to help him, Ines knows that her primary duty is to keep Lin safe, and yet she is unable to hold back. She asks Lin if she can leave her side to assist Noor, believing that even if she dies, Noor will keep Lin safe no matter what. Meanwhile, Noor is about to take a brutal hit when the divine shield protects him against the attack. Upon seeing Ines, Noor tells her that she is a lifesaver, while she apologizes for taking so long to join him. With that, the duo tries their best to stop Zadu and his relentless surprise attacks. Several minutes into the battle, Ines tells Noor they can't keep fighting Zadu forever, and asks him if he can slime him. As Noor thinks of a plan, he notices the dragon's tooth and fangs, and this gives him the idea to use them as bullets. He then tells Ines to remove the shield, and using arm enhancement, Noor hurls the dragon's remains at incoming swords, causing them to shatter. Seeing this, Zadu makes a sneak attack on Ines, but before he's successful, Noor parries his blade, causing it to shatter on impact. He then politely tells Zadu to stop making more sneak attacks, which makes the mercenary realize that Noor has a few screws loose. But what's more weird is that his sword has broken his strongest daggers. After making a few other attacks, Zadu gives up and says that since he couldn't finish this job, he will not be able to join the celebration in the royal capital. While Noor's gang is wondering what celebration Zadu is talking about, he tells Rollo the only reason he's alive right now is because of Noor. With that said, Zadu turns to leave, and Noor tells him to be safe on his way, making him stop in his tracks. He then tells Noor that he has encountered a lot of freaks, but he's clearly the weirdest of them all. Right before leaving, Zadu makes one last attempt to assassinate Rollo, but as always, Noor deflates his attack, making Zadu realize that he won't be making a bag today. After he mysteriously disappears in black smoke, Lin asks Ines and Noor about the mentioned celebration. Noor admits that it sounds fun, and when he suggests returning to the royal capital, Rollo starts shaking with fear. Seeing this, Ines asks what's wrong, and Rollo reveals that another monster is heading towards the capital, and this one is large enough to wipe out an entire country. After hearing that, Lin immediately tells Ines that she is returning to the capital, but she stops her, saying they can't go back. Lin then reveals that she already knows what her brother had tasked her to do, which catches her off guard. She then tells Ines that if they don't warn Rain what's coming, they'll lose their homeland like the demon folk lost theirs, and it would be pointless for her to be alive. Knowing she is right, Ines agrees, while Noor asks Rollo if he wants to come with them. He agrees, stating that he wants to help them, which plunges Lin in deep guilt for judging the poor boy. Meanwhile, Rain walks around the empty capital to make sure all the civilians have been evacuated successfully. Just then, he notices something weird in the sky, and after casting a seal-breaking spell, he's horrified to see the Dragon of Catastrophe. During his childhood, Noor's father told him a story about a dragon slayer who slaved an evil dragon that had been terrorizing humans. Impressed by his strength, Noor told his father that he wanted to become a dragon slayer one day, but the old fart revealed that it wouldn't be so easy since dragons are incredibly strong and live up to thousands of years. They can make the ground tremble just by walking, and crumble the strongest of mountains with just their tails. However, after hearing that, Noor was more determined to become a dragon slayer. In the present, Noor points at the horizon, but his friends tell him they can't see anything. A minute later, they see the Dragon of Calamity. As the dragon approaches the royal city, casting a huge shadow on the locals, Rain fearfully tells Commander Draken that King Diridas is a lunatic for unleashing such a beast on the continent. Adding to this, Draken reveals the dragon should be hibernating currently, so if he's woken against his will, he must be extremely angry. Just then, the dragon flaps his wings, causing a wave of destruction, and seeing this, Rain immediately orders Draken to evacuate everyone out of the capital. Around the same time, the Sovereign Six are dealing with monsters at different locations, making it impossible for them to return to the royal capital. In the palace, Gilbert tells Clays they should also evacuate, but he tells Gilbert not to worry about him, because he has a duty to protect his kingdom. Meanwhile, Lin drops to her knees, as Ines tells her that there's no doubt the royal capital will be completely demolished by the dragon. Knowing that her father won't just abandon his people, Lin prays that he'd somehow survive the nightmare that is about to be unleashed. Noor, on the other hand, is completely psyched to see such a huge dragon. He then asks Lin if her family is still inside the capital, and when she says yes, he tells her that he can go help them out. Shocked by his claim, Lin asks how he plans to do that, given how far they are, so he tells her he'll use her wind blast to reach the capital. While Lin is initially weary of the plan, she quickly realizes that Noor is someone who can pull off the impossible, so she agrees to assist him. Back at the capital, Clays recalls how Diridas threatened him by saying that it'll be easy for him to destroy his country. Despite that, Clays stood his ground and said he can't hand him the Dungeon of Lost. Infuriated by this, Diridas told Clays that he's letting the dungeon's resources go to waste, so if they combined resources, they'd be able to take over the whole world. However, Clays disagreed, stating they don't want to use otherworldly powers that are beyond their control, which made Diridas extremely salty. Now, as Clays watches his city get destroyed, he regrets letting the negotiations with Diridas fall through. As he reaches the highest point of the castle, he recalls Lin's childhood and tells himself that he'll die protecting his daughter's future. Meanwhile, Ines creates a cannon-shaped shield for Lin to safely execute her 3-layered wind blast spell. As Noor stands in front of the cannon shield, he asks Lin why her spell looks different than before, but his question is answered as Lin shoots him towards the capital. Meanwhile, the dragon is about to release his Elder Breath, a spell that burnt the continent to a crisp several years ago. In retaliation, Clays uses the Blast Sword, a weapon that consumes the user's life force to create one powerful attack. Back on the ground, Rain and the Sovereign Six hopelessly watch Clays preparing to sacrifice himself for the sake of the kingdom, when all of a sudden, Nor crashes into the battlefield, parrying the dragon's attack and knocking him out in the process. This makes the dragon extremely upset that a small man like Nor was able to strike him down. While the pissed dragon prepares to retaliate, Nor breathes a sigh of relief, because moments before his landing, Nor thought he was a goner. After healing his neck pain, Nor looks around and thinks the dragon doesn't look as scary as he had thought. While Nor confidently prepares to confront the beast, Enos, Lin, and Rollo arrive at the city on horses. Just then, Rollo warns them to look out, as a huge boulder attacks them out of nowhere. When the dust clears up, they find themselves cornered by a group of goblin emperors. Lin, however, notes that this batch is relatively smaller than the goblin emperor they confronted in the forest. Still, since they are more in numbers, Lin starts panicking until she forces herself to think like Nor. This gives her courage, and she tells Enos there's nothing to be afraid of since they're only confronting a stupid horde of goblins. Enos agrees, saying that compared to the Dragon of Calamity, they have it fairly easy. With that, Enos creates a divine barrier to stop the Emperor Goblins, while Rollo nervously uses his power, commanding the goblins to stop. This gives Lin enough time to freeze them, allowing Enos to yeet them all with a single blow. As Lin watches Rollo trembling with fear, she realizes the boy has no idea how powerful he really is. Meanwhile, the Dragon of Calamity grows increasingly frustrated as Nor continues to not only evade all his attacks, but his sword is also damaging his nails that he just got done for the battle. After several more attacks, the dragon rises in the sky, ready to unleash his elder breath, but Nor deflects the spell again, leaving everyone shocked. Especially the dragon, who starts roaring in frustration, and hearing his cries, Rollo reveals the dragon is upset over Nor not taking him seriously, because dragons are extremely prideful creatures. As a last-ditch effort, the useless beast tries to bite Nor's head off, but he easily blocks the attack and breaks one of his teeth in the process. After the dragon collapses in frustration, Rollo tells his friends this is the dragon's way of submitting to Nor. Unfortunately, the oblivious idiot has no idea what's going on, but when he sees the broken tooth, he recalls his father telling him that after the dragon slayer subjugated the dragon, he took his body parts and converted them into medicine and weapons. That's how the dragon slayer became a hero, but as Nor looks at the dragon's eyes, he smiles, realizing he's not hero material, and spares the dragon's life by putting away his sword. Just then, the girls and Rollo run up to Nor, and upon seeing Rollo, Nor thinks he's the reason why the dragon finally calmed down. However, Rollo immediately tells Nor that he had no part in that, which leaves the idiot confused, until he concludes that Rollo must be hiding the truth, because he doesn't want anyone knowing how powerful he is. He then tells Rollo that he'll keep his secret, before telling the gang that he wants to release the dragon back into the wild. Bang, the responsible one, Enos tells Nor it's unsafe to let a destructive beast live, and Lin agrees with her, until Nor threatens to call PETA on them. Once they finally agree to let the poor dragon live, Nor asks Rollo to tell the dragon to go back home. However, Rollo hesitates, thinking the dragon is too powerful to listen to him. Nor notices this, so he whispers in Rollo's ear that he has nothing to be afraid of, which encourages him to face the dragon. After building a mind connection with the beast, Rollo tells Nor the dragon has agreed to do whatever his master commands. As always, the idiot misunderstands the situation and thinks the dragon is submitting to Rollo, so he asks Rollo to tell the dragon to go home, and never to harm humans again. However, just when the dragon takes flight, he is shot red by a mysterious light, leaving everyone shocked. A few miles away, Doritus laughs wickedly, claiming that not even a powerful dragon stands a chance against him. With that, he orders his vice captain to continue with the assault, leading him to summon an army of soldiers. A few months earlier, the vice captain told Doritus that after the Dragon of Calamity had destroyed the royal capital, they would equip their soldiers with magic swords and send them to ransack what's left of the Clay's kingdom. Along with that, they'll use advanced weapons to make sure King Clays has no chance of winning the battle. As Doritus heard of the plan, he laughed with excitement, until a knight named Randius begged Doritus to reconsider, because a war wouldn't benefit their kingdom. However, that pissed off the king, so he kicked Randius in the face and told him that he would have the Dungeon of Lost Relics no matter what cost he has to pay. As Doritus watches his army advance, he says history will remember him as a conqueror who liberated the people of Clay's kingdom from their idiotic king. Meanwhile, Rollo leads Nor and the gang towards the area where the dragon has fallen. However, before Nor can approach him, Lin brings his attention towards the army headed towards the royal capital. Just then, Doritus notices them and thinks Enos must be the reason why the capital is still in good condition, since she is known as a living legend across the world. However, this only excites Doritus, as he orders his vice captain to use the laser cannon to destroy Enos and the princess. As the weapon charges up, Lin grabs Rollo and runs to safety, while Ines suddenly freezes as she watches the laser coming towards her. Luckily, in the nick of time, Nor uses his sword and parries the attack, which leaves Doritus confused. When he asks his soldiers what just happened, they nervously inform him that the laser cannon must have missed the target somehow. On the other side, Lin tells Nor that they don't have enough soldiers to fight the Magic Empire. That's when Ines interrupts the conversation, telling Lin they should retreat and regroup with Rain. However, before they can do that, they are attacked by the laser cannon once again, but this time, Ines uses her divine shield and protects everyone. Seeing this, Doritus grows frustrated and tells his soldiers to make sure no one gets out alive, before running back to the base for a quick nap. After the attack, Nor realizes that he must do something, so he tells the gang that he's going to distract the army, which will allow them to leave safely. However, Lin looks at Nor with concern, so he assures her that he has a lot of practice in running, thanks to all those times when he was searching for honey and would end up getting attacked by bees. He tells Lin and Ines to use the opportunity to escape, but Lin instead decides to help him by using her Wind Blast skill. Nor gets confused and tries to explain that he is not planning to fight an entire army by himself, but Lin launches him into the air before he can finish his sentence. After blocking several laser beams, Nor finally lands on the front line, but due to the momentum of the wind blast, he runs directly towards the soldiers and disarms every single one of them with a single swing. When the swords land back on the soldiers, Doritus is left in shock as he watches his entire army crumble in front of his eyes. He then looks up to Nor and thinks he's some kind of fearsome monster that has come to torture him. Right at that moment, Doritus freezes in horror as he watches Nor coming towards him. At first, he plans on running away until he remembers he's wearing an armor made up of orichalcum, a metal that repels every attack. Now feeling more confident, Doritus prepares to fight Nor, but he quickly runs past him, destroying all the heavy machinery that he was once proud of. As the old king lies trembling on the ground, he realizes that Nor is the same ugly-looking man that he saw earlier with Ines and Len. As Doritus watches Nor standing in front of him, he realizes that Nor has the same sword he saw in Clay's kingdom, the legendary and most prized item from the dungeon. For years, Doritus had wanted that sword for himself, but even he knew that only Clay's was strong enough to wield it with two hands. However, when he sees Nor casually holding the sword with just one hand, he wets himself, realizing just how powerful he is. Not wanting to lose his head, Doritus quickly climbs on his horse and runs away like a cowardly rat, leaving behind his wounded soldiers. An hour ago, when Nor landed on the enemy's side, he saw Doritus and wondered why the clown was wearing noticeable gold armor and had an ugly golden horse. Before Nor could ask him that directly, he saw the swords coming back down and parried them towards the soldiers, which left them severely injured. After doing his part, Nor stopped to breathe when he noticed the old man staring at him with wide eyes. This caused Nor to wonder if Doritus lost his way to the nursing home. He then realized that he still had a lot of crap to do, so he continued to destroy the machinery until there was nothing left. Once Nor had finished his job, he came back for Doritus, who asked him if he was going to slime him, which shocked Nor until he realized that he probably looks like a scary dude. So he dropped his sword and gave Doritus a creepy smile, but that only made things worse, as Doritus quickly climbed on his horse and ran away. In the present, Nor's body reaches its limit, as he suddenly gets tunnel vision. As he collapses on the ground and spits blood, he hopes Lin, Ines, and Rollo have escaped safely, as he finds himself surrounded by the enemies. Knowing that low heal is not going to work on his condition, Nor accepts his fate when all of a sudden he notices multiple laser beams shooting down from the sky. Right on cue, he sees a hot chick landing on the battlefield, which he immediately recognizes as Mian, one of the Sovereign Six. Just then, Nor sees Gilbert next to his side and gets so emotional that he ends up calling him Gilbeer. Ignoring the idiot, Gilbert looks at the ruined battlefield and is amazed by how Nor took care of everything single-handedly. While Gilbert is in awe, Sig joins them, and Nor looks at him, expecting to be remembered by him. However, Sig coldly tells Nor that he doesn't know who he is, but he is still very grateful to him for saving them all. With that, he tells the other Sovereign Six to take care of the remaining soldiers, or else they will be staining their legacy as the legendary heroes. With that, Sig uses a spell called Thousand Blades to slime all the soldiers in a single powerful blow, which leaves Nor in awe as he recalls the first time he saw Sig in action. A few miles away, Oaken and Sign watch as Sig slimes all the enemy soldiers. Sign then tells Oaken that he told Sig multiple times not to unalive the poor soldiers, but the old wizard reminds the kind-hearted healer that those soldiers were about to destroy their capital a few hours ago. With that said, Oaken summons a squad of mages to capture any soldiers who survive Sig's attack. After creating an earth wall to trap them, Sign orders his team of healers to treat the surviving soldiers so they can question them later. Meanwhile, Noor watches the Sovereign Six in action and feels happy to see his childhood instructors again. A few minutes later, Lynn uses her healing magic to fix up Noor, while Sig informs everyone that after investigating the soldiers, he has learned that Doritus doesn't have surprise attacks for them anymore. When Oaken learns Doritus was present on the battlefield, he scoffs, saying he must have been pretty confident about his victory to show up on the front lines. Noor hears this and asks Oaken if they are talking about Mr. Bling Bling with a golden horse. The wizard is shocked that Noor knows Doritus before revealing that the golden armor he's talking about is orichalcum, a very expensive, high-grade piece of equipment that supports multiple skills. This explains why Doritus was able to safely flee from the battlefield, and Sig adds that if he had crossed the borders, they wouldn't be able to catch him, because there is a fortress which makes it impossible for them to apprehend him. The old wizard is sad to hear this, and wishes there was a way for them to fly towards Doritus. That's when Noor tells them there might be a way to make that happen, which leaves Oaken confused. Shortly after that, they arrive at the spot where the Dragon of Calamity is still lying. As the Sovereign Six sees the mighty dragon up close, they are all left amazed. While healing the dragon, Sign admits that he had never expected to heal an enormous elder dragon in this life. Then, addressing Noor, the healer tells him he has grown quite strong since they last met. This leaves the wizard in shock, since he hadn't expected a weakling like Noor to grow up into a big buff daddy. In response to his shock, Noor tells Oaken that he wasn't expecting him to be still alive. Oaken gets pissed at his remark and promises Noor that he's going to live for another 100 years. While Noor laughs at him, the wizard asks him if he's sure about using the dragon as their private aeroplane. Noor assures everyone that Rollo can control the dragon, but the demon boy immediately shakes his head and says he doesn't know if he can do that, which makes Oaken blue with worry. However, as always, Noor manages to give Rollo a boost, which helps him communicate with the dragon. After a moment, the dragon starts screeching, and Rollo tells Noor he wants to take revenge on the idiots who attacked him. When Lynn asks Noor if he will join them, he becomes nervous since he has a height phobia, and yet he agrees to come with them. Just then, Noor hears someone saying he's coming too, and when he turns around, he finds Karoo, the Master of Thieves, another one of the instructors that he trained with. Just then, Clay and Rain arrive as well, and Lynn immediately runs over to greet her father, while Ines apologizes to Rain for failing the mission he assigned her. After reassuring her that there is nothing to worry about, Rain tells the gang he's coming along with them. Once everyone climbs onto the dragon's back, Rollo gives him the signal to take off. While they soar into the sky, Dandog asks Sig why he never said anything to Noor. Sig explains that after seeing everything Noor managed to accomplish without their help, he realized that he had been overestimating his own abilities. A few minutes later, the Elder Dragon reaches a river near the border, but they still cannot find any sign of Doritus. Karoo suggests turning back since they are about to enter the Magic Empire's territory, where they will likely be shot out of the sky. Just then, Lynn spots Doritus, who is about to safely make it inside his kingdom, and seeing this, Rain wonders what to do next. If Doritus escapes, he could simply rebuild his army, come up with an even bigger scheme, and launch another attack on the capital. Hearing this, Ines asks Rain for permission to destroy the Empire's walls and defenses. Once Rain allows Ines to go all out, she destroys everything in sight, leaving Lynn shocked, since Ines usually uses her power for defense. This gives Lynn the motivation to prepare herself for what could be the greatest battle of her entire life. Meanwhile, Noor has passed out due to his fear of heights. An hour later, Doritus safely reaches his castle, where he starts throwing a tantrum because his ministers did not give him such an incompetent army. Before they can reason with Doritus, they notice a huge dragon headed towards them, which leaves everyone in shock. Doritus wonders how the Elder Dragon is still alive when he clearly shot him dead. That's when he remembers that the Clay's kingdom possesses a talented healer named Sign, who has the power to resurrect dead animals. Even then, it's confusing for an Elder Dragon to obey a human, and Doritus eventually concludes that the beast is being tamed by a demon folk. Feeling anxious, he orders his minister to call their beast tamer, but turns out, the guy has already left the country. This leaves Doritus fuming, so he takes his anger out on the poor minister. Seeing this, Randius steps in and tells Doritus to calm the fudge down, but the loser now starts barking at Randius, ordering him to fix the mess which he created. As Randius leaves to figure something out, Doritus asks his ministers to activate the Keranos. Horrified by this, the ministers tell Doritus that it's a bad idea, as the device is not yet ready. Moreover, it's too dangerous to be used in the city. However, Doritus kicks the closest minister to him in anger, causing the remaining ministers to obey their king out of fear. A moment later, the Kyranos is ready to be fired, and seeing this, Dorytus becomes certain that he'd win this fight no matter what. However, when the beam is fired at the elder dragon, Dorytus and his ministers are shocked to see it coming back towards them. As Dorytus starts panicking, his ministers decide to quit immediately, realizing this is above their pay grade. Dorytus now finds himself completely alone, and after watching his empire get obliterated by his own sinister device, he falls to his knees. Moments before this, Nor had jumped off the dragon to parry the laser beam and thought this was the end. Luckily, he manages to make a smooth landing on top of Dorytus's castle. Meanwhile, Randius and his gang have come to behead the king, hoping it would solve the issue between their empire and the Clay's kingdom. Just as Dorytus is begging for his life, Nor crashes inside the palace, leaving everyone stunned. Then, upon seeing Dorytus, Nor says hello to him, which makes Randius think he's with the king. As Nor finds himself suddenly attacked by Randius's group, he tells them all to just take a chill pill, because he's not here to fight. In response, Randius asks Nor if he is with the king, and when he confirms he's not, the knight tells him to piss off then, because they're about to chop the old man's head off. However, Nor, being a good guy, asks Randius to spare Dorytus, since he's an old man. However, the knights tell him that Dorytus has ruined their lives by turning them into enemies of the Clay's kingdom. Right then, a knight throws a grenade at Dorytus, but before it reaches him, Nor throws him against the wall to keep him safe. Unfortunately, this only pushes the knights to throw several more grenades at the king, so Nor uses feather steps and slams Dorytus against the floor to protect him. While Dorytus is thinking about slimming himself, Nor tells Randius to let the old man live since it's not like he's going to die of old age soon. Just when Randius is about to argue with Nor, Rain and the gang walk in, telling Randius that a dead man cannot atone for his sins. In the meantime, Lin checks up on Nor, and seeing this, Rain tells them to relax outside because the big leagues have got this. Once the duo heads out, Rain explains to Randius and his knights that they also have no intention of fighting and just want Dorytus to answer for his crimes. Hearing this, Dorytus begs for forgiveness, and Rain assures him that he will forgive him after he goes through the same pain and misery as the people of his kingdom. When Dorytus asks what he means by that, Rain explains that he will go through a torture program where he's mutilated, burned, and amputated. As Dorytus starts freaking out, Sign gently assures him that he won't let him die through the process, and Karoo adds that if he faints, he'll be brought back to consciousness, so he feels every second of the pain their people went through. Upon hearing his sentence, Dorytus loses control of his bladder, realizing he's about to go through the same pain that Ken Kaneki went through. Meanwhile, Lin completely heals Nor, and after thanking her, he looks around at all the damaged mana furnaces and starts feeling guilty, as he never intended to cause this much destruction. While Lin is assuring him, Rain returns with the rest and informs them that the war is finally over, as Randius and his group will take over the empire until Dorytus's grandson is ready to take over the throne. Just then, Randius and the other knights approach Nor to apologize for their previous behavior. They also thank Nor for stopping them from ending Dorytus's life, as it could have put them at odds with the royal family. Nor, in return, apologizes to Randius for causing so much destruction, which leaves the knight baffled. He soon realizes that Nor is an exceptionally kind man, so he tells Nor he and the knights will always be there for him. Even though Nor is confused by their hospitality, he quickly thanks Randius, so they can all head back home. Soon after that, they return to the Clay's kingdom with some good news. Filled with relief, Clays asks Nor what he wants as a reward since he's the whole reason why they're all still alive. As always, Nor tells him that he doesn't need anything until he looks at Rollo and asks Clays to provide him a safe shelter. However, Clays takes a moment to consider, since accepting a demon folk in his country would put him at odds with the theocracy of Mithra. Despite this, he accepts Nor's request, since it's the only thing he has asked for. That night, Rollo sleeps in a comfortable bed for the first time and wakes up to a good meal, something that he has longed for. Seeing this, Enos tells Rollo that since he'll be living with her, he'll always get to have tasty food, which makes the boy weep happy tears. The next day, Nor watches the displaced civilians return to the broken capital city. Watching the wrecked houses, Nor can't help but feel sorry for everyone. Soon after that, he arrives at the guild, and is glad to see it safe from all the damage. As he picks the guild's signboard, he starts recalling the first day he came to the city and how sad he was when the guild master told he cannot become an adventurer. Shrugging off the bad memories, Nor then feels happy about seeing his old instructors after so long. 15 years ago, Nor had begged Sig to train him. He agreed, but told Nor the training would be intense. Nor was prepared for anything, and told Sig he was ready to face anything. That night, as Sig trained Nor and the rest, he became sure that Noor wouldn't last for 3 days. 10 days later, Sig was amazed to see Noor still working with the same determination he had on day 1. A few days later, Sig introduced a new training method where students had to parry a huge boulder. When everyone failed, Noor stepped up and swatted the rock, only to end up with a dislocated shoulder. Despite being in pain, Noor got up to face the boulder again, which truly amazed Sig. That was the moment Sig knew that Noor had a promising future ahead of him. That week, Noor asked Sig what sort of skill he could acquire, and while he told Noor that it all depends on him, he decided to flex one of his lightning-fast sword skills, which left Noor in awe. After praising Sig, Noor told him the rhythm of his movement, which surprised Sig, since a normal human shouldn't be able to see his steps. He was sure that Noor would surpass him one day, but just 2 months later, Sig couldn't understand why Noor had been unable to learn any other skill aside from parry. Sig hoped for Noor to learn one useful skill, but after 3 more months, he realized Noor didn't have the talent to become a swordsman. As he delivered the news to Noor, Sig saw how crushed he was, so he assured Noor he'll find his calling in another training school. With that, Noor dragged himself over to Dandalg's training camp, who told him that he trained people to become strong shields for their allies. As days went by, Dandalg was stunned by Noor's persistence, since he was sure a scrawny boy like him would end up becoming everyone's free-use twink. Then one day, during the physical endurance class, a huge chunk of rock was about to fall on Noor, but instead of running away, he stood still in his place, which impressed Dandalg so much that he was dying to turn Noor into his successor. Unfortunately, after 3 months, Dandalg told Noor he wasn't cut out for his program, and since he's no Rock Lee, he won't be able to get any more stronger. After that, Noor joined Mian's archery program, and from the get-go, she was hesitant on taking Noor. So she told Noor to throw a rock at the target, which she knew was too far for a newbie, and yet Noor was easily able to do it, not once, but twice. Soon, his training began, but whenever Noor tried holding a crossbow, he would end up crushing it, so Mian told him to stick with the rocks. One day, when she observed Noor's exceptional throw, she asked him who taught him to swing like that, and Noor revealed that he learned it by himself while hunting Thunderflash. This got Mian all messed up, since not even skilled hunters can capture that bird easily. However, after 3 months, Mian gave up on Noor, like the other 2 Sovereign 6. When Noor came knocking on Kara's door, he immediately took him in, since he knew who he was. The training began, and Noor and his peers were told to reach the treasure chest by avoiding all traps. However, Noor faced all the crap head-on, and while Karu was surprised, he knew Noor could never become a spy, so he was told to go. Soon after that, Noor came to Oaken for magic classes, and after 2 months, Oaken told Noor he can never be a magician because he doesn't have mana flowing in his body. However, Oaken didn't want to give up on Noor just yet, so he sent him to a mana resonance room, which could hypothetically charge someone with mana. However, he warned Noor not to stay there for long, since it could damage his internal organs. A week later, Oaken learned that Noor was still in there, and started panicking, because he was certain Noor had died in the room. To the wizard's shock, Noor was completely fine, and even shooed him away so he could spend more time in the room. Unfortunately, after 3 months, all Noor could muster was a small tiny flame. Initially, Oaken was disappointed, but then Noor created 2 tiny flames, which nearly sent the old wizard into a coma, since it took him 50 years to master one tiny spell. Even then, Oaken knew this wasn't enough for Noor to become an adventurer, so he was told to go away. Eventually, Noor came to Sign's training school, but the healer told him that only those who are blessed by God can become a healer. Despite that, Noor expressed to Sign that he won't leave until he agrees to train him. This went on for weeks, until Noor collapsed from a high fever, and when Sign saw how determined he was, he agreed to let him in. 3 months later, Noor was able to use Low Heal, a skill that could help Noor cure small wounds. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough for Noor to become a full-fledged adventurer. But even then, Sign told Noor that it was impressive he could use low-level healing without a natural blessing. A few days later, the Sovereign Six learned that Noor had disappeared from the capital. By then, everyone knew what Noor was capable of, so they collectively decided to adopt Noor. In the present, Clays informs Rain that the holy theocracy of Mithra was working with Doritus to destroy their kingdom. Despite knowing they're up against another powerful enemy, Clays says with confidence they don't need to worry, because they have Noor. Speaking of which, Noor is working at the construction site when Lin comes to check up on him. However, after hearing Noor's belly growling with fear, she laughs and hands him a piece of bun, hoping this would make Noor eat her buns later. Just then, Noor spots the top of a building about to collapse on a bystander, so he rushes over to help and easily parries the falling chunk with his sword. Did you like how powerful Noor was? Comment unplotted for more fun anime recaps, and as always, like and subscribe.